Dan, a highly skilled salesman at a used car dealership in Buffalo, New York, lives a structured life with his wife, Jessica, and their three children, Nina, Kyle, and Max. When his boss asks him to take a picture for the company website, Dan refuses because he wants to celebrate his 18th wedding anniversary. At home, Jessica argues with Nina about her college plans. Nina initially wanted to study journalism at Stanford but changed her mind to attend Southern YWA University with her boyfriend Trevor. That evening, Dan and Jessica go to an amusement park for their anniversary. Jessica expresses frustration that Dan never takes the family on vacations, so Dan promises to plan one. While they kiss, a group of teenagers takes their photo. Dan asks them to delete it, but an argument ensues and a drink is spilled on him. Rather than fighting, Dan walks away. The next day, Jessica practices boxing to relieve stress and accidentally hits a woman named Gwen, who is a travel guide. They chat, and Gwen gives Jessica her business card, offering to help if she ever wants a vacation. Meanwhile, Dan goes grocery shopping with Max when a stranger suddenly attacks him. Dan swiftly defends himself, shocking the bystanders. He calmly pays for his groceries and returns home, where he checks a hidden drawer containing weapons. Realizing his past is catching up, he contacts his old friend, Augie, to arrange new identities for his family. Later, Dan discovers that Nina quit the school magazine months ago, which upsets him. He also learns that Kyle, instead of attending chess class, has been gaming in his friend Samir's garage. Frustrated, he gathers his family and announces an unexpected vacation to Las Vegas. As Dan and his family drive away, a black van follows them. Dan skillfully evades their pursuers by tricking them into chasing another car. When Jessica tries posting vacation photos, Dan collects their phones and disposes of them, ensuring no digital trace. At a travel office, he insists on paying cash for maps, raising suspicion but ultimately convincing the officer. Back home, McCaffrey and his men search for Dan's family. With no digital or financial trails, McCaffrey orders his men to keep looking. Meanwhile, Dan and his family check into a hotel, but when Kyle posts a fan photo online, Dan changes plans, making them sleep in the car. That night, McCaffrey's men attack on motorcycles. Without alarming his family, Dan uses his combat skills to fight them off, even using Max's milk bottle as a weapon. Jessica wakes up after an explosion but believes Dan's excuse that they hit a pothole. The next morning, they stop near Southern YWA University, where Nina convinces Dan to let her visit. Meanwhile, Jessica shares her past as a pole vaulter with Dan, who nearly reveals his own past but stops when he notices a suspicious man. The man, however, is just a businessman searching for his daughter. In Trevor's dorm, Nina finds him cheating and breaks up with him. She later apologizes to Dan, vowing to reclaim her school magazine position. Their bond strengthens. Meanwhile, Dan contacts Augie to arrange new passports in Las Vegas. Upon arrival, Dan plans to tell Jessica the truth but is distracted when Kyle challenges him to a laser tag match. As an elite gamer, Kyle expects to win, but Dan's real combat experience surprises him. Though defeated, Kyle feels reassured when Dan comforts him with a hug. At their hotel, Dan meets Augie to collect the passports. Meanwhile, Kyle sneaks out to meet fellow gamers, with Nina following. At dinner, Dan finally reveals his past to Jessica, but in French, which she doesn't understand. During a gaming tournament, McCaffrey's men spot Kyle, and soon after, their hotel room is ambushed. Dan fights off the intruders, but Jessica, feeling betrayed, takes the kids and calls Gwen, asking her to arrange a getaway. However, Gwen sets them up, leading them into McCaffrey's trap. He captures Jessica and the children, using them to lure Dan. When Dan arrives at the casino, McCaffrey reveals himself as Dan's biological father. Disappointed in Dan for abandoning his assassin past, he forces him to rejoin. Dan agrees under the condition that his family is safely returned to Buffalo. Jessica and the kids escape by deceiving their captor, with Jessica knocking him out before rushing to save Dan. Meanwhile, Dan defeats Gwen in a brutal fight. Realizing the deception, McCaffrey orders his men to retaliate. Dan instructs his family to head to the rooftop and hands a drone to Kyle, setting up his final plan. On the roof, Kyle skillfully pilots the drone, creating a diversion. Dan takes down McCaffrey's men in a fierce battle, while Jessica, realizing Dan has always protected them, joins the fight, using her boxing skills. Dan and McCaffrey engage in a final showdown. McCaffrey, unable to accept his son's betrayal, attacks relentlessly, but Dan outsmarts him, leading to McCaffrey's downfall. With the enemies defeated, the family reunites, and Jessica forgives Dan. Back in Buffalo, Dan quits his job, embracing a peaceful life with his family. This movie really pulls you in from the very first moment. When Dan decides to run from his past to protect his family, the story gets even more intense. Every moment is filled with new twists, and the fights are absolutely gripping, especially the ending, which was a total shock. If you're into action-packed films full of suspense, this one is a must-watch. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more videos like this.